The store's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like distant bees, casting a sterile glow on the rows of neatly stocked shelves that stretched out in orderly lines, each aisle a corridor of consumer choices from canned goods to fresh produce, where the faint scent of baked bread mingled with the sharper notes of cleaning supplies lingering in the air, creating an atmosphere that was both familiar and impersonal to anyone who frequented such places in the bustling city. Elias Grant, the man behind a sprawling real estate empire that had earned him the moniker Shadow Tycoon for his deliberate aversion to the spotlight, preferring the quiet precision of deals made in boardrooms over the flash of public appearances, pushed his cart absent-mindedly through the dairy section, his mind wandering to the latest acquisition of a downtown high-rise that promised to redefine the skyline. Though such thoughts often left him feeling detached from the world around him, a world he navigated with the ease of someone whose wealth insulated him from everyday struggles. His days were filled with board meetings, where voices debated profit margins and market trends, followed by silent evenings in a sprawling mansion perched on a hill overlooking the city lights, where the echo of his footsteps on marble floors served as a constant reminder of the wife he'd lost to a prolonged illness years ago, her absence a void that no amount of success could fill, leaving him to question the true value of his accomplishments in moments of quiet reflection. Today, he was just picking up a few essentials: coffee beans ground fresh from the gourmet section, artisanal bread with a crust that promised to crunch satisfyingly under teeth. Nothing extravagant by his standards, but enough to sustain his solitary routine as he maneuvered the cart with practiced efficiency, avoiding the occasional shopper who hurried past with baskets overflowing with family-sized packages. That's when he heard it. A small voice, tentative but determined, cutting through the hum of the checkout scanner like a clear note in a symphony of background noise, the words carrying a weight that belied their simplicity and innocence. "I promise to pay when I grow up. Please, just this milk for my sister," the voice pleaded, drawing Elias's attention away from his own list as he turned slowly, his sharp eyes landing on a girl no older than 9, her skin a rich brown that glowed warmly under the harsh lights, her hair styled in 2 uneven braids tied with mismatched ribbons that spoke of hurried mornings and limited resources, standing there with a carton of milk clutched tightly in one small hand and a faded blanket-wrapped bundle cradled carefully in the other, a baby, whimpering softly as if echoing the girl's quiet desperation. Her clothes were threadbare, a faded t-shirt with a cartoon character barely visible through stains and wear, paired with jeans that were too short at the ankles, revealing scuffed sneakers that had seen better days, and her eyes held a mix of hope and desperation, wide and expressive, reflecting a resilience forged in circumstances far beyond her years, circumstances that Elias could only begin to imagine as he observed the scene unfolding at the register. The cashier, a middle-aged woman with a name tag reading Karen pinned crookedly to her uniform, crossed her arms firmly over her chest, her expression a mask of impatience mixed with a hint of discomfort, perhaps born from dealing with similar situations in a neighborhood where economic disparities were stark and often visible in the faces of those who entered the store late at night or early in the morning. "Kid, this ain't a charity. Put it back or get out," Karen said curtly, her voice laced with the fatigue of a long shift, glancing around as if hoping a manager would intervene. But the girl, Mia, as Elias would later learn through gentle questioning, flinched but didn't budge an inch, her small frame straightening with a determination that seemed outsized for her age, holding the milk like a precious artifact that could mean the difference between a quiet night and one filled with cries of hunger. "She's hungry. Mama's sick, and we ran out yesterday. I'll work for it one day, I swear," Mia continued, her words tumbling out in a rush, laced with the earnestness of a child who had learned too early the art of negotiation in a world that often overlooked those on the margins, especially young black girls navigating systems not designed with their well-being in mind. Whispers rippled through the nearby customers like a gentle wave, some casting sympathetic glances while others averted their eyes, murmuring under their breath, "Poor thing, probably from the streets near the projects," one woman said softly to her companion, her tone carrying a mix of pity and distance, while a man nearby added, "In this city, with all the challenges families face, it's heartbreaking to see kids like that," highlighting the unspoken awareness of broader social issues that plagued urban areas, from housing instability to food insecurity disproportionately affecting communities of color. Elias stepped forward without hesitation, his voice steady and commanding, cutting through the tension like a calm authority figure in a room full of uncertainty. "I'll cover it," he declared simply, pulling out his sleek black credit card from a leather wallet that spoke of quiet luxury, the kind that didn't need to flaunt itself. The cashier's eyes widened in recognition as she processed the name on the card, perhaps recalling vague articles about the reclusive tycoon who shaped the city's landscape from behind the scenes, her demeanor shifting from stern to startled deference. "Miss Grant? Sir, you don't have to. It's just, well, policy," she stammered. But he was already placing additional items on the conveyor belt, his quick scan of the shelves leading him to add diapers in the appropriate size after a discreet glance at the baby, formula enriched with nutrients for growing infants, fresh bread that could be easily toasted for quick meals, and a selection of fruits like apples and bananas that provided natural sweetness and vitamins, transforming what could have been a moment of rejection into one of unexpected generosity. Mia looked up at him with those wide eyes, now shimmering with a blend of gratitude and curiosity, her small face breaking into a tentative smile that revealed a missing tooth, a reminder of her youth amidst hardship. "Thank you, mister, but I mean it, I'll pay you back," she reiterated, her voice firm with the sincerity of a promise made from the heart, a promise that carried the weight of her family's struggles in a society where opportunities were not always equally distributed. He knelt down to her level, his tailored suit jacket brushing the floor slightly, contrasting sharply with her worn jeans and creating a visual tableau of worlds colliding in the most unexpected way. "I believe you." "What's your name?" he asked gently, his tone warm and inviting, designed to put her at ease in a moment that could have felt overwhelming. "Mia," she whispered, shifting the baby slightly in her arms as if to introduce her as well. "And this is Zoe. She's 6 months old," she added, her protective instinct evident in the way she adjusted the blanket to shield the infant from the store's drafty air conditioning. Elias nodded solemnly, his mind already racing with questions about how a child so young came to bear such responsibility, especially in a city where systemic barriers often compounded family challenges. "You walked here alone?" he inquired, concern etching his features as he glanced outside at the gathering clouds that promised an impending storm, the kind that could turn a simple errand into a perilous journey for someone so vulnerable. She nodded affirmatively, her braids bobbing with the motion, glancing outside at the wind whipping through the parking lot, scattering leaves and plastic bags like forgotten thoughts. "Mama's resting under the old overpass. She gets headaches bad sometimes," Mia explained, her words painting a picture of a life lived on the edges, where public spaces like bridges and underpasses served as makeshift homes for those displaced by economic pressures or personal crises, but a reality all too common in urban environments grappling with housing shortages and inadequate support systems. The transaction complete, Elias helped carry the bags to the door, his strong arms making light work of the load that would have burdened Mia's small frame. But as she prepared to venture into the wind that howled like a distant siren, he hesitated, a pang of something unfamiliar tugging at him, perhaps empathy born from his own losses, or a sense of duty in a world where he had so much and others so little. "Let me walk you," he offered, his voice leaving no room for argument but softened by genuine concern, aware that as a black child in this neighborhood, her safety could be at risk from more than just the weather, given the unfortunate realities of bias and oversight in public spaces. She eyed him warily at first, her young mind likely schooled in caution by a mother navigating a world that could be unkind to those who looked like them. But after a moment's pause, she agreed with a small nod, her small hand gripping the bag tightly as they stepped out into the cooling air, the door chiming behind them like a punctuation mark on the encounter. The path led through the parking lot, past cars gleaming under streetlights that flickered on as dusk approached, and then along sidewalks cracked from years of neglect, weaving through a neighborhood where murals on walls depicted community pride amidst signs of urban decay, eventually arriving at a grim underpass, littered with debris from passing traffic and makeshift shelters fashioned from tarps and cardboard boxes that fluttered in the breeze like fragile flags of resilience. There, curled on a tarp amid the cardboard and old newspapers that served as insulation against the cold concrete, was Lena, Mia's mother, her face gaunt with lines etched by worry and exhaustion, her dark skin pale under the dim light filtering through the structure above, eyes hollow but sharpening as she stirred at their approach, sitting up protectively with a mother's instinct honed by necessity. "Who's this?" Lena rasped, her voice rough from what could have been a cold or simply the toll of living exposed to the elements. pulling Mia close while eyeing Elias with suspicion born from experiences where help often came with hidden costs, especially for a black woman raising children alone in a system that sometimes viewed her through lenses of stereotype rather than humanity. Mia rushed forward eagerly, her face lighting up despite the surroundings. "Mama, he bought us food. He's nice," she explained, setting down the bags and unwrapping Zoe to show her mother the infant's improved demeanor now that sustenance was at hand. Elias stayed back respectfully, introducing himself calmly with a nod, his posture non-threatening as he explained, "I just wanted to help, no strings attached," his words chosen carefully to convey sincerity without overstepping boundaries. Lena's suspicion was palpable, her eyes narrowing as she assessed him, but exhaustion won out in the end, her shoulders slumping slightly as she accepted a bottle of water from one of the bags. "We don't need pity," she stated firmly, her pride evident even in her weakened state, a pride that Elias respected, knowing it was a shield forged in adversity. Elias met her gaze steadily, his own experiences with loss allowing him to see beyond the surface. "It's not pity. It's seeing someone who needs a hand, and I have one to offer," he replied, his tone conveying a quiet strength that began to chip away at her defenses. That night, Elias couldn't shake the image from his mind, the young girl's promise echoing like a mantra as he drove home through rain-slicked streets, the city lights blurring into streaks of color that mirrored his swirling thoughts, arriving at his empty home surrounded by luxury he rarely enjoyed, where he paced the expansive living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the twinkling metropolis below, questioning for the first time in years whether his isolation was truly by choice or a habit he could break. By morning, after a restless sleep filled with dreams of forgotten promises and lost connections, he returned to the underpass with more supplies, warm blankets woven from soft fleece to ward off the chill, hot meals packed in insulated containers steaming with nourishing soups and stews, a portable heater powered by batteries to provide a semblance of comfort in the unforgiving environment. Lena resisted at first, her wariness a protective barrier, but Mia's pleas softened her resolve, the child's eyes pleading as she said, "He came back, Mama, just like he said." Her trust in this stranger, a testament to her innate optimism despite the hardships. Over coffee poured from a thermos into mismatched cups scavenged from who knows where, Lena shared fragments of her story in halting sentences, revealing her escape from an abusive partner who had left emotional scars deeper than any physical ones, the loss of her job as a caregiver due to unreliable childcare in a market that undervalued such labor, especially for black women, spiraling into homelessness that forced them to navigate shelters that were often overcrowded and underfunded, all while protecting her daughters from the harsh judgments of a society quick to label rather than assist. Elias listened without judgment, his presence a quiet anchor in her storm, nodding occasionally to encourage her to continue, his own heart opening to the realities he had previously only read about in reports or seen from afar. Days turned into a routine of support. Elias visiting with groceries tailored to their needs, fresh vegetables for balanced meals, books for Mia to foster her curiosity and education, toys that sparked joy in Zoe's eyes, as he arranged a motel room anonymously through a trusted contact, providing a safe haven with clean sheets and running water, a stark contrast to the underpass. He connected them with a social worker experienced in family services, ensuring access to basics like medical checkups and nutritional programs without overwhelming them with bureaucracy. But when Lena panicked one night after a particularly vivid dream of past threats, fearing that such kindness must come with hidden expectations in a world where generosity toward black families could sometimes mask ulterior motives, she fled with the girls under cover of darkness, leaving behind the key and a note of apology scribbled on a napkin. Elias, upon discovering their absence the next morning, felt a surge of determination rather than defeat, searching tirelessly through shelters with their dimly lit halls filled with stories similar to Lena's, parks where families gathered for fleeting moments of normalcy, until he found them huddled in an alley behind a closed diner, Mia clutching Zoe protectively while Lena looked exhausted and defiant. "Why run?" he asked gently, kneeling to meet their eyes without towering over them, his voice free of accusation. Lena tearfully admitted, her voice breaking as tears traced paths down her cheeks. "People always want something in return, and I can't risk my girls." Elias replied with quiet conviction, extending a hand not in demand but in offer. "All I want is for you to be safe, nothing more." His words bridging the gap of mistrust built over years. This time, He brought them to his guest house, a modest space behind his mansion with its own entrance and garden, offering privacy and stability without intrusion, explaining, "No pressure, just a place to breathe and rebuild." Mia, sensing the shift, drew him a picture on scrap paper with crayons he had provided, a tall man standing beside a girl and a baby, all under a roof labeled safe in wobbly letters, her artwork, a heartfelt token that Elias folded carefully and placed in his wallet like a talisman. Elias felt a crack forming in his once isolated world, the walls of his solitude beginning to crumble as the sounds of laughter from the guest house drifted over, reminding him that connection could heal wounds he thought were permanent. For the first time, his wealth meant more than mere numbers on a balance sheet. It meant tangible change, a chance to rewrite not just their story but his own, as he committed to being there step by step, fostering a bond built on trust and mutual respect in a narrative that was only beginning to unfold. As the sun set on that day, casting golden hues over the property, Elias watched from his window as Mia played in the grass, her braids swinging freely, Zoe cooing contentedly in Lena's arms, and he knew that this encounter in the aisle had sparked something profound, a journey of healing and hope that would challenge them all to grow beyond their pasts. As the family settled into the guest house with its cozy rooms filled with soft lighting from lamps that cast warm glows on wooden floors polished to a gentle sheen, creating spaces where Mia could spread out her drawings on a small table without fear of them being swept away by wind or rain, and Zoe could roll on a clean rug exploring her surroundings with curious gurgles that echoed like tiny bells in the quiet evenings, Elias dove deeper into their world, uncovering layers of pain that demanded more than just material aid or temporary comforts, layers that revealed themselves gradually through conversations held over shared meals at a kitchen counter where steam rose from pots of simple stews simmering with vegetables and herbs that filled the air with comforting aromas, reminiscent of home-cooked stability. Lena's nightmares woke her screaming in the dead of night, her body jolting upright as if chased by invisible forces, remnants of years spent with Darnell, Zoe's father, a man who'd alternated between superficial charm that drew her in during vulnerable moments and sudden outbursts that left emotional scars deeper than any visible marks, scars that manifested in her reluctance to make eye contact during tense discussions or her habit of checking doors multiple times before sleep. Behaviors Elias noticed with growing concern as he spent more time observing the subtle ways trauma lingered like shadows in a well-lit room. Elias hired the therapist, discreet and compassionate with years of experience in helping families navigate the complexities of recovery, who visited weekly in the afternoons when sunlight streamed through windows adorned with light curtains that fluttered softly, sessions beginning with gentle questions that encouraged Lena to unpack her experiences at her own pace, revealing her untreated anxiety rooted in a childhood of neglect where resources were scarce and emotional support even scarcer. Growing up in neighborhoods where opportunities were limited by factors beyond personal effort, leading to cycles that she was determined to break for her daughters. Lena resisted at first, her arms crossed defensively during the initial meetings as she sat on the plush couch that Elias had furnished the living room with, questioning the therapist's motives with a sharpness honed by past disappointments in systems that promised help but delivered bureaucracy. But as sessions progressed with exercises like journaling thoughts in a notebook provided for that purpose, where she scribbled entries about dreams deferred and small victories like Mia's first uninterrupted night of sleep, breakthroughs emerged. Mia joined family counseling on occasion, sitting cross-legged on the floor with coloring books that doubled as tools for expression, learning to voice her fears without guilt, articulating how the stares from strangers in public spaces made her feel exposed, or how schoolyard comments about her background stung like unexpected pricks, fostering an environment where open dialogue became the norm rather than the exception. Elias, meanwhile, grappled with his own ghosts during quiet moments alone in his main house, where polished surfaces reflected his solitary figure as he sipped tea from a ceramic mug overlooking the garden that separated the two dwellings. Helping them stirred memories of his wife's battle with depression that had unfolded in hushed hospital rooms filled with the beeps of monitors and the scent of antiseptic, how he'd felt helpless watching her fade despite the best care money could buy, emotions that resurfaced now as he committed to being a steady presence, realizing that true support meant showing up consistently rather than solving everything with finances alone. One evening, as Mia played with new toys in the yard under a sky painted with hues of orange and pink from the setting sun, her laughter mingling with the chirps of birds nesting in nearby trees. A knock echoed at the main door, firm and purposeful, prompting Elias to answer and find Mike, his old friend and security consultant with a background in protective services, standing there with a folder tucked under his arm, his expression serious yet reassuring. "You asked me to look into their background," Mike said, stepping inside to the study lined with bookshelves holding volumes on architecture and history that Elias collected as a hobby, the report inside the folder painting a grim picture. Darnell had a record dotted with incidents of disputes and minor infractions that hinted at deeper patterns, and rumors circulated in certain circles that he was searching for Lena, claiming unresolved matters that sounded more like excuses for reinsertion into her life. Information gathered discreetly through networks Mike maintained from his days in the field. Elias's jaw tightened as he read through the pages under the glow of a desk lamp that illuminated the text in sharp clarity, his mind racing with strategies to safeguard the family without alarming them unnecessarily. "We protect them," he stated firmly. And Mike nodded in agreement, proceeding to install cameras around the property with lenses discreetly hidden in foliage and fixtures, setting up alerts that would ping Elias's phone at any unusual activity, measures that blended seamlessly into the landscape without creating a sense of imprisonment. Tensions peaked when Darnell appeared at the gate one dusk, his figure silhouetted against the fading light as he pounded on the metal bars with a persistence that rattled the quiet evening, demanding to see his kid in a voice laced with entitlement that carried over the intercom system Elias monitored from inside. Elias confronted him directly at the entrance, standing tall with the gate between them as a barrier, his voice calm but unyielding. "Leave now, or face consequences that will make this your last attempt," he warned, drawing on his experience in high-stakes negotiations to maintain composure. Darnell sneered, his eyes narrowing in defiance. "You think money scares me? This is family business, but with police en route." After Elias discreetly signaled Mike via a hidden button, he backed off reluctantly, vowing under his breath to return, his retreat leaving a chill in the air that lingered like fog. Lena, overhearing the exchange from the guest house window where she had been preparing dinner with ingredients from a recent grocery delivery, collapsed in fear onto a chair, her hands trembling as she clutched a dish towel, whispering, "He'll never stop, not until he gets what he wants." Elias held her shoulders gently, offering reassurance in the form of a plan rather than empty words, outlining steps to strengthen their position legally and practically. They filed for a restraining order the next day at a courthouse downtown, navigating hallways lined with benches where others waited for their turns in similar proceedings, but Darnell evaded service by moving between addresses, sending anonymous threats in the form of notes slipped under doors at odd hours or shadowy figures lurking at the property's perimeter captured on camera feeds that Mike reviewed meticulously. Elias relocated them temporarily to a secure cabin upstate, a rustic retreat nestled among tall pines and a serene lake where the air carried the fresh scent of earth and water, providing a change of scenery that allowed breathing room. The drive there filled with Mia's questions about the trees whizzing by and Zoe's contented babbling from her car seat. There, in the cabin with its stone fireplace crackling with logs that Elias gathered from the surrounding woods, nature offered solace through walks along trails carpeted with fallen leaves that crunched underfoot, moments where Lena could reflect without the constant hum of city noise, and Elias joined them for evenings around a table playing simple games like card matching that brought laughter and lightness. Lena opened up more during these times, sharing stories of her youth over mugs of herbal teas steaming with calming chamomile, tales of growing up in vibrant but challenged communities where block parties fostered bonds but economic pressures strained them, her voice gaining strength as she recounted aspirations once set aside for survival. Therapy sessions turned intense via video calls on a laptop Elias provided, with breakthroughs like Lena recognizing patterns in her choices and committing to tools like mindfulness exercises that involved deep breathing in the fresh air, while Mia expressed her emotions through art projects using supplies packed for the trip, creating collages that depicted hopes for a stable future. Elias confided in Lena one night by the cabin fire, the flames dancing in patterns that illuminated their faces with flickering warmth, opening up about his wife's struggles and how helping now felt like a way to honor her memory. "I couldn't save her, but maybe I can help you find your path," he shared, and she touched his arm lightly, replying, "You're not saving us alone, we're fighting together, and that makes all the difference." Back in the city after weeks of respite, with the cabin's peace lingering in their minds like a cherished memory, Mike tracked Darnell to a seedy motel on the outskirts through tips from contacts and digital traces, coordinating a sting operation with authorities that led to his arrest for violating parole conditions uncovered in the investigation, the scene unfolding in a parking lot under overcast skies where officers approached methodically. In court, a formal chamber with wooden paneling and a judge presiding from a raised bench, Lena testified with her head held high, her voice steady for the first time as she detailed the patterns of intimidation without faltering. "You took my peace, but not my strength, and I stand here reclaiming it," her words resonating in the room filled with observers and legal aides. Darnell, handcuffed and seated at the defense table, muttered apologies under the weight of evidence presented, but Lena walked out taller, her steps echoing with newfound resolve as she embraced Mia waiting outside. Elias watched proudly from the back row, realizing his role had shifted from benefactor to true ally in their journey, a realization that filled him with a sense of purpose long absent. Healing continued upon their return to the guest house, now feeling more like a home with personal touches like plants. Lena tended on windowsills that bloomed with green leaves symbolizing growth, as she enrolled in vocational training for administrative work at a community college with classrooms buzzing with eager learners, courses that equipped her with skills in organization and communication that boosted her confidence. Mia started school online through a program Elias facilitated, her screen filled with interactive lessons that caught her up on missed education, her enthusiasm evident in reports of progress shared over family dinners where plates were passed with stories of the day. Zoe's first steps brought joy, her wobbly advances across the living room floor met with cheers and captured in photos that adorned the fridge like milestones of triumph. Elias organized a small celebration in the garden, stringing lights between trees that twinkled like stars as they enjoyed cake baked from scratch, the event a marker of progress amid ongoing efforts. But shadows lingered in subtler forms, Lena's occasional panic attacks triggered by unexpected noises, Mia's nightmares that woke her whispering for reassurance, challenges they addressed together through continued support and routines that built security. Through it all, Elias provided not just resources like books on resilience or apps for tracking well-being, but his presence, reading bedtime stories to Mia with animated voices that made characters come alive, cooking simple meals side by side with Lena in the kitchen, where recipes were experimented with laughter over minor mishaps, listening attentively during late evening talks on the porch swing that creaked rhythmically under their weight. His once silent mansion now echoed with life spilling over from the guest house, challenging his long-held solitude and inviting him to envision a future intertwined with theirs, as the chapter of immediate threats closed, paving the way for deeper roots to take hold in soil enriched by shared experiences and unwavering commitment. With Darnell behind bars serving time that allowed the family to exhale without the constant shadow of his presence looming like an uninvited guest at every turn, the family embraced renewal in ways that focused on weaving threads of community and self-discovery into their daily lives, starting with Lena's newfound passion for advocacy that blossomed during volunteer shifts at a local shelter nestled in a converted warehouse where walls were adorned with motivational posters and the air hummed with conversations of encouragement among those seeking a fresh start. Her role involving listening to stories shared over cups of coffee in a communal kitchen equipped with mismatched mugs and a perpetually brewing pot that symbolized ongoing support. "I was invisible once," she'd say during group circles arranged in folding chairs that formed intimate rings under soft overhead lights. "But speaking out made me seen, and now I want to help others find that visibility." Her words resonating with participants who nodded in recognition, drawing from her experiences to facilitate discussions on building networks in neighborhoods where resources were spread thin but resilience ran deep. Encouraged by Elias during evening walks along tree-lined paths where leaves rustled like whispers of possibility, she started a blog anonymized at first to protect their privacy, typing entries on a laptop in the quiet hours after Mia and Zoe had drifted to sleep in rooms decorated with posters of inspiring figures and shelves holding books that sparked imagination, detailing survival tips for single mothers facing everyday hurdles like balancing budgets or accessing education programs tailored to flexible schedules. Her posts gaining traction through shares in online forums where readers commented with gratitude, "Your words saved me from feeling alone in this journey," fostering a virtual community that extended the shelter's reach beyond physical walls. Comments poured in like letters from distant friends, some sharing their own triumphs over similar obstacles, others seeking advice on navigating job markets that valued experience over formal credentials, and Lena responded thoughtfully, her confidence growing with each interaction that affirmed her voice as a beacon for change. Reunions marked this phase with emotional depth, beginning when Lena reached out to her estranged brother, Jamal. Now, a teacher in another state shaping young minds in classrooms filled with eager students and colorful bulletin boards displaying projects on history and science, a video call bridging years of silence as his face appeared on the screen with a mix of surprise and warmth, his voice cracking slightly as he apologized for past indifference during family gatherings where old grievances had festered unspoken. "I should have been there," he admitted over the connection that crackled faintly with distance, inviting them for a visit to his home surrounded by a yard blooming with flowers tended as a hobby, the trip becoming transformative as they packed bags with essentials and excitement. The drive filled with Mia's songs from the back seat harmonizing with radio tunes that played uplifting melodies, arriving to find Jamal waiting with open arms and a table set for a meal of homemade dishes like roasted vegetables and grains that evoked childhood flavors long forgotten. Mia bonded with cousins during games in the backyard where swings creaked under playful pushes and laughter echoed freely, exploring a playroom stocked with toys that encouraged creativity like building blocks forming imaginative structures, while Zoe played in a real backyard sandbox, sifting grains through tiny fingers, her giggles blending with the sounds of wind chimes hanging from porch eaves. Lena forgave old wounds over late-night talks on a screened veranda where stars dotted the sky like scattered jewels, discussing shared memories of family holidays and the paths that diverged. "Family isn't perfect," she told Elias upon their return during a debrief over tea in the guest house kitchen, where counters held fresh fruits from the trip. "But it's worth mending when hearts are willing," her perspective enriched by the reconnection that added layers to her blog entries with themes of forgiveness as a tool for personal growth. Elias supported Lena's growth by funding a community center workshop series titled Reclaiming Your Story, held in a multi-purpose room with whiteboards for brainstorming and comfortable seating arranged in semicircles to promote openness, where women gathered weekly under fluorescent lights softened by fabric drapes, writing letters to their past selves in journals provided as part of the kit, turning personal narratives into testimonies of strength shared in rounds of reading that built solidarity. Lena led with poise, her sessions starting with prompts like, "What moment defined your turning point?" that elicited responses ranging from quiet reflections to animated shares, her own contributions weaving in anecdotes of finding unexpected allies in unlikely places, inspiring participants to explore avenues like resume building or skill-sharing circles that extended beyond the workshops into ongoing meetups at nearby cafes, serving affordable brews. Mia, inspired by the energy, created a kids' version in the guesthouse living room transformed with cushions into a cozy nook, drawing comics about super survivors using colored pencils on stacks of paper, her stories featuring characters overcoming challenges with cleverness and kindness, shared with Lena during bedtime routines where pages were flipped with delight. Professionally, Lena landed a job at a nonprofit coordinating aid for families in transition, her office a modest space with desks cluttered with files and a window overlooking a park where children played freely, her duties involving organizing distributions of supplies like backpacks filled with school essentials or connecting clients to mentors experienced in career guidance, a role that felt ironic yet fitting as she drew from her journey to empathize and empower. Her first day marked by a sense of belonging as colleagues welcomed her with a team lunch of sandwiches and salads in a break room buzzing with collaborative ideas. Elia stepped back slightly to respect her independence, his visits shifting to supportive check-ins over walks in the park where paths wound through gardens blooming with seasonal flowers that scented the air sweetly, their bond deepening into quiet affection manifested in shared glances during family outings to museums exhibiting cultural artifacts that sparked discussions on heritage and progress, or late-night talks on the porch about dreams like expanding the workshops to online formats accessible to wider audiences. "You've given me wings," Lena said one evening as they watched fireflies dance in the twilight like living sparks of magic, her hand brushing his in a gesture of connection, and Elias replied with a smile, "You always had them. I just cleared the runway for takeoff," his words underscoring a partnership built on mutual respect rather than dependency. The climax came at a public event. Lena's TED-style talk at the center, titled From Promise to Power, delivered on a stage with a simple podium and backdrop of community artwork, depicting unity and growth. The audience, including Elias seated in the front row with Mia and Zoe, the latter clapping tiny hands enthusiastically, as Lena recounted the store encounter with vivid detail, Mia's vow echoing as a symbol of hope that drew murmurs of empathy from listeners, diverse in backgrounds, but united in appreciation. The room filled with applause that swelled like a wave of affirmation, and afterward, a publisher approached in the lobby amid mingling guests sipping refreshments from trays, expressing interest in a book deal to expand her blog into a memoir that could reach bookshelves lined with inspirational titles, Lena accepting with a nod of determination, dedicating it mentally to the man who believed in promises and showed me how to keep them. Mia, now thriving in school with report cards boasting achievements in subjects like art and storytelling, gifted Elias a new drawing during a family dinner where plates held grilled favorites seasoned with herbs from the garden. A circle of figures holding hands, labeled Our Family in bold letters surrounded by hearts and stars. Her artwork a testament to the bonds formed. As the family thrived with routines like weekend picnics in meadows where blankets were spread under shady trees and stories exchanged freely, Elias found his own purpose, renewed philanthropy, shifting from distant donations to hands-on initiatives like funding youth programs at the center that taught skills in creative expression and leadership. His days now interspersed with collaborative planning sessions where ideas flowed like rivers merging into greater impact. In the end, the story wasn't about rescue from external forces alone, but mutual transformation through internal growth and shared visions. A millionaire shocked into action by a child's earnest words. A family empowered to soar on wings strengthened by trials turned triumphs, proving that one small promise, honored through persistent effort and open hearts, can rewrite destinies in chapters filled with light and legacy. As they looked forward to horizons bright with possibilities unfolding like pages in an ever-expanding book of life.